You guys ever heard of the insanity of that was the Loud House fandom? Have y'all ever heard of that nonsense? The sheer goonery that goes on inside of that fandom. The sheer wickedness that goes on inside of that fandom. It's creepy, it's wild. Now, this YouTube video is titled The Worst Fandom You Never Heard of. Now, no. I already watched the first 5 minutes. And I'm gonna save you the torture. That was the first 5 minutes of this video. So without any further ado, let's get into it.
Even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go. Go, 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 yo, go, go.
It's so bad. What's up with this fandom having constant torture of little children? Why? Just why? That's ew.
When we think of the long-winded epics of fiction, one's mind usually points towards the Epic of Gilgamesh, Homer's Odyssey, War and Peace, or Chris Chan's biography. However, what if I told you the longest work of fiction ever written is a Loud House self-insert fanfiction that has, count them with me, 1, 2, 3...
Remember, that's longer than the Bible. That's longer than Journey to the West. That is hundreds of times longer than One Piece. That is hundreds of times longer than the longest animated series you know of. That is longer than Sesame Street. That is longer than the original Electric Company. Some weird fanfic nigga. Some weird 36-year-old man who continually works on this, right? Inserted himself into a show about a bunch of minors. No, this nigga is 30 years old in real life. Remember that. And he inserted himself with a bunch of minors. Think about that. Let's see how that goes. Let's see what it says.
16,777,215 words at the time of writing. And believe it or not, it's still being updated regularly, with the most recent edition being from 21 hours ago as of writing this. Note, this section is not meant to bully the creator of his work. I just want to show a particularly amusing part of the fan.
No, screw that. I'm bullying you. Why would you write this? You had no you could have wrote multiple novels. You probably could have wrote multiple bestsellers for all the time you had. You could have made millions. You could have made hundreds of dollars. You could have been a best-selling author, but you you wasting your time writing a fan fiction where you can't make money off of it. You could have wrote multiple books. You could have wrote hundreds of books for the amount of words are in this chapter, and you choose to spend your time making a fanfic, nigga. You could have set up generational wealth. You could have set up generational wealth for your family or future kids. If you, nigga, I wouldn't know if you're going to tell half kids, but you chose to write this. You could have been successful, but you spend your time writing a weird Loud House fan fiction, nigga. You're just creepy. You're just creepy, my nigga.
Fandom that I think really furthers the idea of how insane the whole thing is. Mr. James Dean 5842 is the creator of this masterwork, and at the young and naive age of 36 has managed to create quite the work of fiction here. He also makes sure to specify he never accepts, quote, bad opinions, bad criticism, racial slurs, and hateful comments, which is fair, I guess.
Nigga, you don't have the right to be saying that. You don't accept bad criticism because you're weird, nigga. You're weird for this. You know you're wrong for this, my nigga. That's why you don't accept it, because you know they're right. You're just weird. You're just weird. It's creepy. You're just creepy. Why would you write this?
I'm sure he's gotten no shortage of those since he began writing this 2,000 chapter epic. Anyways, let's go over part of the story. The story begins with our, at the time, 30-year-old protagonist moving in with his family into their multi-million-dollar mansion in Royal Woods, Michigan. Fortunately for JD here, he bumps into the guy that starts the whole story, Lincoln. He introduces this mysterious man to his entire ass family, and of course he then naturally hits it off with literally every one of Lincoln's sisters, because why not? All the characters do their own thing until talking to JD, where they just respond like robots every single time.
Why, thank you.
I feel like I'm watching an AI interact with itself, but you know. We now discover that the author has, all of a sudden, decided to spawn an 11th sister named Lainey, who likes to paint and shit. He didn't even follow the 4-letter name thing that every other character in the family follows. He continues meeting the sisters one by one until he meets the 16-year-old sister, Lenny. He remarks, "You sure are pretty, Lenny." Alright. In each of the next chapters, he proceeds to awkwardly insert himself into actual episodes from the show. In the second chapter, he makes sure to let us know that although he is 30 in real life, he is 15 in the fanfiction. A 30-year-old man role-playing as a 15.
Yeah, I don't find this suspicious. This is creepy. This is weird, and that's not okay. That's not okay at all. That reminds me of a couple years back for all the weird what else. What if Naruto got Uncle pregnant? What if Sakura was pregnant by Naruto? What if Goku had a harem I was pregnant? I got Naruto's pregnant. That reminds me is that no man, nigga, you're weird. This is creepy. That's creepy.
15-year-old alongside a bunch of underage girls. What could possibly go wrong? Okay, I'm reading this a bit further, and at some point he inserted Ed, and Eddie, and now they all hang out at Lincoln's house. He also has this segment where they view into an alternate gender-bended version of the Loud House where, and I quote, "We saw Lynn Sr. and Rita's counterparts crying as the older boys were taken away in police cars and the younger boys were taken away by child protection services." What?
Nigga, what happened? What the heck? What happened to Lincoln? Oh, like that actually exists, by the way. What? Like even what? I'm so confused. I'm so very confused. I'm so very confused.
Anyways, skipping ahead 1900 chapters, there isn't a single recognizable character left
1900?
other than the author and an occasional Loud sister. They visit all kinds of other cartoons from Dexter's Lab, Into the Spider-Verse, and fucking Total Drama Island, The
Alright.
Redonkulous Race. And, like I said, it still continues on to this very day, with most of the recent chapters alone having multiple thousands of words. For context, in 2018, the story had 180 chapters, and in 2021, it had 1,300 chapters. In 2 years, this guy has written another 7.5 million words and 850 chapters. And what exactly are you doing with your life? Shit, man, we need my boy James Dean.
I'm doing something better than him. At least I don't spend all my days writing weird Loud House fan fictions. No, as I said before, this nigga could have wrote multiple books, probably multiple bestsellers, but no, he chose to waste his time doing that nonsense. That's so dumb. That's so dumb. I hate life. I hate existence. What the heck? Why? Just why? What's up with the ignorance? That's so dumb. That is so dumb. That is so dumb.
5842 to finish up Hunter x Hunter. When you think of notoriously bad fan art, what do you think of? My Little Pony? I mean, yeah, you're not entirely wrong, but is it a core staple?
I apologize that you all had to see that. I didn't know that was going to be here. I take full accountability, and I do apologize.
Of that fandom to show bizarre sexual tension between siblings? Yeah, I don't think so. What about Bluey? Is it common for that fandom to produce gruesome images, imagining small children being deathly ill or fatally injured?
Once again, even though that video is blurred, I didn't know that was one of the either. I do apologize. And once again, I take full accountability for my actions.
Yeah, not really. With the Loud House fandom, you get this much and sometimes more, but we'll get into that part later. For now, we'll discuss the art that is often created by viewers who just wish to show their adoration for the children living in the Loud family. As we know, fan art is a controversial concept within many communities, often because those who draw them are not very in touch with basic morality, to say the least. There's a reason the next 3 parts are dedicated to Loud House fan art. I want to prove to you, the viewer, that this fandom may be the worst major community on the internet. Coming from an admittedly poorly made article by AminoApps.com, we can take a look at some of the most vile yet apparently safe for work things the fandom has created. Here, we see a precursor to the images we're going to be purely discussing in the last part.
That one isn't that bad. That one seems adorable. That one can't be that bad. That one kind of seems adorable.
The person who drew this believed so much in the bond between 2 11-year-olds, they drew them snuggling in bed, all whilst Lincoln's 17-year-old sister is menacingly standing over them. Next, another preview at the awful situation.
Okay, with that image, if you think anything dirty is happening there, that seems like a you problem. I ain't gonna lie. That seems like if you see that, you think, oh no, that's dirty, that's filthy. That seems like it's more you, because that looks adorable. Have y'all never had sleepovers before? That's literally in every single movie, and that's in a lot of Disney shows too. That's not that bad. That way I can let slide. That looks adorable. If you don't have a dirty mind, you know.
These artists put these children in for their own amusement, with this image showing Lincoln's 15-year-old sister pissed drunk off.
I would like to retract my previous statement that looks like it was wrote by the same, drewn by the same person. That's not okay. Never mind. I would like to retract my previous my statement. I do apologize, and once again, I take full accountability.
Of beer and vomiting in a dirty alleyway. Like, how the do people come up with this shit? Like, I won't lie, in a morbid way, it's kind of funny, but that's just because of how purely absurd it is. Some more lovely art comes from Pinterest. Again, putting this poor, tortured 11-year-old boy into provocative situations.
Who is
Seriously,
that?
just let my boy play Roblox and watch Skibidi Toilet videos. My God. This one shows...
And to be fair, I think at this point, he's probably like 14 in the actual series. He's like in 7th or 8th grade at this point. Oh my God, Lincoln is actually growing.
Him being affectionately hugged by Lori's 17-year-old friend, and I don't think she loves him like a brother. There's actually a shocking amount of art between these two specifically for some reason. Here's one of them holding hands and blushing while sitting on a couch, with Lori's friend literally dwarfing.
That's not okay. That's creepy. I've never seen these images the day before in my life. That's not okay. Never mind.
Him in size. Is this some kind of like mommy issue projection? Here's another one of that girl Ronnie Ann in booty shorts. Here's one of Lori's friend forcefully kissing Lincoln. Here's one where Lincoln is romantically laying with his sister's lesbian girlfriend. Here's one where Lori is kissing Lincoln. And I'm getting ahead of myself. See what kind of rabbit hole we're in for? And this is just the beginning. There are literally thousands of artworks depicting this kind of psycho shit. But if you can believe it, we've only just skimmed the surface. Violence is...
What do you mean violence? What could possibly be worse than the irishing bleach stains that's come upon our eyes, brother? What could possibly, and I mean possibly, be worse?
Probably the most literal of all the circles we've yet discussed. If you weren't aware, people in the Loud House fandom seem to have an affinity for placing its characters into sad and depressing situations, often depicting them as deathly ill, morally wounded, dead, etc. Again, tell me another community that has such a unique issue. To give some more perspective, imagine if there was a large community of people who drew fan art of the backyardigans featuring Pablo being dropped into a pit of wooden spears. That's what I mean by how insane all this is. Taking a look at this Reddit post where someone has the same question I bet all of you, including myself, are having, we get an answer from this user. Quote, biggest reason behind sad Loud House stuff is a pair of ultra poorly received episodes, Brawl in the Family and No Such Luck, which generally trigger the fan base to hold a grudge against the Loud family and seek to comfort themselves by imagining incredibly angsty situations where Lincoln disowns his own family, runs away, abuses them back, what have you. Generally, not even out of hate for the characters either, because I get the impression most people making this art actually want to evoke sympathy and pity for all involved. The writer continues by saying how this is apparently not an issue unique to the Loud House and shouldn't be seen as such. Although there's some credence to be lended to what the writer is saying here, I simply can't buy the fact that this is Loud House fans secondhand trauma dumping by drawing some child and sibling abuse in paint.net.
So y'all like to draw little kids with black belts and domestic violence. Y'all don't find this suspicious. Y'all don't find this creepy. That's just. Jeez. My head hurts horribly. This is just weird, my guy.
On top of that, other kids shows that feature gore or trauma art, let's say SpongeBob for example, feature abstract representations of grown-ass adults, not realistic representations of actual people. It's the fact that so much of this art has been created, often not even featuring Lincoln, that leads me to believe this is just fanboy reasoning. It doesn't have a whole lot of basis behind it. To help illustrate my point, let me introduce you to a 27-chapter, 346,000-word fanfiction about Lincoln being diagnosed with a terminal illness. Requiem for a Loud is a fanfiction written by some dudes from Argentina who decided to write a PhD dissertation on diagnosing cartoon children with
Just why? Dude, are you? Do y'all not find this weird? Why? Why would you? Why would you? Why? Why'd you do that? Why would you do that? Just, wh- just why? Just no. Just that's dude. Just why?
neurofibromatosis, aka a deadly brain tumor. I'll quickly skim through this to spare you the ironically decent writing to give you the gist of what happened in this fanfiction. Chapter 1. Lincoln is out playing soccer with his sister. He collapses and has to go to the hospital. Chapter 2. He wakes up in the hospital, is visited by his family, but his parents kick his sisters out because they're being rowdy. Chapter 3. Lincoln's parents spend the night in the hospital with him, where they tell his sister she gets brain tumors because of an inherited genetic disease, and he's told he gets 3 weeks to live. Chapter 4. Nothing happens. Blah, 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 something. Chapter 27. Consummatum est, which means it is finished in Latin. Wow. Lincoln talks to his family and says he loves them and then falls asleep and dies. Apparently the Loud House fandom ate this shit up because even before researching this video, I've actually heard whispers of it in various places. Anyways, let's move on to the visual art side of the fandom, where we can see scenes like this in vivid DeviantArt quality. In this image, we see the Loud family undergoing lots of suffering. It starts relatively minor, with Lisa having a failed explosion or experiment, the twins getting into a fight, Lucy being sad, Lincoln breaking a stuffed animal, and then Lynn has a bent leg, Luana's having her reputation ruined. Hey, we've seen this one before. Luna has alcohol poisoning from binge drinking, Lenny's been stabbed by glass or something, and Lori's on the verge of death. Like, this guy made a medieval triptych version of Loud House.
Even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you
I don't want to watch the rest of this. I don't. At this point, I don't. I don't. I don't. I don't know what to say. I don't. I this is. I apologize, y'all, that y'all had to see this. I chose to react to this. I mean, I kind of got to put you through. Y'all finna suffer with me.
Fan art. We get to see all of them needlessly suffering for some reason. Wow, look at that! A fully realized reenactment of the pain and suffering experienced by the Loud family during Lincoln's final moments from Requiem for a Loud. If we keep looking, we see Lincoln with fatal head trauma, Lincoln getting into a fatal car crash with Lori, Lola visiting the grave of her twin sister, and it just continues on forever. There's no end to the suffering this family experiences in various iterations upon the core show. Whatever conclusions you may reach about the show's fandom, though, we haven't even reached the bottom of the barrel yet. Stay tuned, where we'll be diving into how disgusting this fandom could truly get on the unsupervised corners of the internet.
Fraud? No. What the heck could fraud mean? What does that even mean? What could possibly, what could fraud? No. What?
As of now, you, the viewer, are standing on the precipice of a terrifyingly deep pit of immorality and flat-out illegality. Before we take the jump, allow me to guide you along the edge of the canyon, giving you a hint of what's to come. If I haven't hinted at it enough, the art that many people in this fandom creates involves putting underage characters, sometimes even family members, in sensually tense environments. Let's go over how deep this rabbit hole travels into the various dark and gross corners the surface of this fandom has to offer. For an example of something actually official in the show, that even a distant observer would notice, is the strange relationship between Lincoln's 11-year-old friend, Clyde, and his own 17-year-old sister. And they actually kind of play it off as normal. Look, I don't know about you, but to write such a weird thing into a kid's show, especially with the creator himself being a woman toucher, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I mean, they could have toned down the whole bloody no.
No wonder they moved the Loud House till late at night on Teen Nick. Like, I have not seen. I see promotional image of the Loud House sometimes, but no wonder they only air it on Teen Nick, really, because that nigga's a kitty toucher. You know what? By the fan base, that makes a lot of sense.
No singer at the bare minimum made this kid attracted to someone his own age. Like, shit, we don't need representation for most underage Twitter furries. Anyways, moving away from the official shit, all you have to do to enter the cesspool of art and fan fiction is by searching.
Actually, now that I realize it, that is the nosebleed thing. Was now that I'm older, now I finally thinking back that what? Oh my god! Wow, that's weird. That's really weird. There's a lot of bad humor there. That's super weird. Oh wow. If y'all old enough to realize too, good for you, I guess.
Searching up, quote, Loud House ship. In the world of fan art, there are 3 categories here. 1, in-show canon relationships. Obviously, most of these are like actually morally acceptable, like characters dating other characters their own age. Crazy, right? Number 2, putting, I shit you not, specifically one sister, Luann, with that random background character from a single episode into a lesbian relationship. Even generically searching up Loud House ship yields so many results between these 2 characters. I was honestly dumbfounded. I figured, eventually it'll stop. Nope, it just keeps going. Number 3, shipping Lincoln with his own 13-year-old sister. Yeah, while also showing them as having kids. Again, name another show as mainstream as this with a fandom this insane. Delving into the fan fiction side of things, there's no shortage of content involving more underage characters enjoying each other's company. Again, just look up Loud House fan fiction. The first result is a story called Shipping War. Our author places a strong emphasis on puberty and its effects, and how he's now 13 years old, also making him irresistible to the other 13-year-old girls around him. Yeah, I don't know about you, it feels weird seeing what is probably an adult write about young teenagers experiencing romance, especially a kid's show. Basically, this whole thing turns out to be the equivalent of a harem anime, but written by a lonely adult man, so you can just about assume where that goes. Oh, we're not done yet, though. I've got one more story to torture you with. Here's another fan fiction called Ship Shape. Can you guess what this one's about? A story where Lincoln has some form of sensual or sexually tense interaction with almost every one of his sisters. Here are some excerpts if you're curious. Very funny, Lori, Lincoln called back. Put me down, he was blushing. Lori loved it when he blushed. Lori could tell his heart wasn't in it, however. His eyes were locked on her breasts, as they should be. Dude, she is 17 years old. Like, what do I even say about this? Lincoln agreed, unable to take his eyes off his bouncing sister, specifically the parts that were bouncing. And then we can have... Again, bro, this girl is 16 talking to her 11-year-old brother. Speaking of, later in the story, we get these bone-chilling words. Little help, Link?
I don't know what I think I'm lost. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, you guys have to see that. I apologize.
Luna asked. Feels like I'm not doing it right. Just put your arms around my waist. All right, what's next? What? I don't even want to do this one. Here, AI Mark Zuckerberg, read this one for me.
At 14 years old, Lola Loud looked like she had been purposefully constructed to be the first thing to show up when jailbait was entered into a search engine, a fact that had aided the FBI countless times without her knowledge, contrasted sharply with the shapely hips and full breasts that were commonly enjoyed by the women of the Loud family.
I think I've given enough examples, and I'm sure you're done listening to this, but if you've forgotten, then let me remind you, this is the surface of what's to come. So, if you want to get even darker, stay tuned, and we'll be staring the devil right in the face.
Pressure.
You can probably already guess what I've been alluding towards this whole video. If you haven't realized it yet, the Loud House fandom has created a large volume of inappropriate images involving children, often combining themes of abuse, among other things. This side of the fandom doesn't hold back either, including all of the sisters and other kids in the town from ages 17 years old to 15 months. I don't think you need to even see blurred examples as proof, nor do I really want to see those images either, but to give you some context on how bad this is, let's play a game of numbers. On a website dedicated to a certain internet rule, searching the Loud House yields a grand total of 7,500 results. A children's show comprised primarily of children with 7,500 NSFW images of it produced. On another website I discovered while doing my searches that I will not name due to the entire point of the website being underage art, there are 16,000 results. I cannot stress to you how big of a thing this is in the fandom, and while it may not be the majority of people within it, the sheer volume of these works is not few enough to just ignore. If the few and the proud within the Loud House fandom end up seeing this video, I can almost guarantee the argument about it being a small part of the fandom that we do not agree with will come up. And while you may not be wrong in the objective sense, the fact this type of art is so voluminous compared to other fandoms is the true issue here. Just like that Reddit guy mentioned SpongeBob, let's see how the volume of SpongeBob NSFW art compares to the Loud House. On the first website I mentioned, the number sits around 3,000. That means that a show, in total, that has existed for 3 times longer and has a consumer base of billions, has less than half the artwork of a show that's been around for 7 years and is primarily made for an American audience. To reiterate, it's more of a macro scale trend thing than on an individual scale. Remember, this video is about the fandom as a whole, so I've covered it as a whole. This video isn't meant to discuss the inner workings of Loud House internet politics and to discuss the nuance of a misunderstood fandom or something. And although I understand very well this type of stuff the general fandom doesn't tolerate, I'm making a video to bring awareness to this kind of stuff, since based on my research, only a select few cartoon YouTubers have discussed this fandom at any sort of depth, usually staying on the surface of the fandom. And I know this is a wild time to plug, but if you want to see content where I venture to and discuss places where most YouTubers wouldn't even think.
So I would like to apologize. Huh. I huh. I will. I will.
What causes people to become groomers?
What? You know what? What? Well, what? That's a wild way to begin a video. I'm a head out. I hope y'all enjoy. Peace out.